some actual investment coming in is always good and welcome aboard. My nervousness with private equity is always, what do they want out of it? What is their motive for investing the same as a Neil Hudgell? Obviously not. Therefore, what are they looking? What is their return on it? They're investing with a reason, with purpose. And honestly, would you put money into Super League right now? Or do you wait a year for the TV deal to go belly up and then get it at half the price?
Well, I suppose a positive is that there's people who really only give a shit about making money for themselves looking at Super League as a viable opportunity, which most observers will think is remarkable. And lots of fans after the last week will think even more so remarkable, because we all question the commercial savviness of the competition after coming to a conclusion that we don't really care about long term, and short term Canada's not going to give us any money. We all question the commercial sense of those kind of statements. So the fact that there's other people out there who just want to make money for themselves looking at Super League and Super League clubs as a way to do that is a positive. But like you say, always with private equity, it's kind of at what cost? What do we lose from what we love? And owners like Neil Hudgell love the sport as much as the fans do. He is a fan.
Yeah.
But private equity opens up other commercial opportunities, potentially connections to people with money. It feels
other
dirty.
Markets potentially.
Yeah, exactly. It feels dirty, but it also kind of offers a hope, a filthy kind of hope that you can't shower off.
There we go. Anyway, former England and Great Britain halfback Danny Maguire will join Tony Smith's staff as assistant first team coach at Hull KR for the 2021 season. Maguire, who's 37, finished a distinguished career at Craven Park in 2019, having won everything at Leeds and helped Rovers retain Super League status. He then became head of recruitment for 2020, a role he will continue alongside his coaching duties.
It's getting more for the same, this, isn't it? It's putting more emphasis on the coaching side from Danny Maguire, whilst paying him the same to do his old job still too.
Yeah, and with someone with that much experience being around your side, it's not going to hurt you. And someone who's obviously closely linked and worked with Tony Smith heavily is going to know how he operates. It's a clever move, really.
Yeah, he's talked a bit in times where he's been on TV this year and stuff about how he's worked with some of the halfbacks already, or some of the pivot players and fullbacks and hookers as well and stuff. So it seems like it's just a formalisation of something he was developing into anyway, and he seemed to be excited about that side of what he could offer at Hull KR as well. So it might be that it's a positive move, whilst at the same time actually being a good move for the Bucks side of things for Hull KR, because it means you've got a guy doing two roles probably not getting paid more money to do it.
And another thing is it's a potential succession plan as well, isn't it? He's the sort of person you could see becoming a head coach with a few years' experience behind him, and whether he'll be ready by the time Tony Smith is ready to leave.
Yeah, I never saw it in him, say, as a 25-year-old who scored 25 tries a year, supporting people kind of player. But maybe that 2017 grand final win, that side that he led for Leeds, but also just more and more the way you see him talk when in any sort of small media appearances he makes and stuff. You do see a guy who's become a smarter thinker about the game, who does care about passing those things on as well. So it seems like...
And the role and the job he did at Rovers on the field as well, to kind of... He wasn't necessarily all there physically because he'd had so many injuries and he was having to marshal himself through, but you could tell his leadership and his game awareness were of a different quality.
Yeah, I feel like he's fallen into wanting to be a coach rather than probably maybe planned to be, but it seems sensible. Like you say, it looks right from what we've seen. So good luck to him. a few other notes from around Super League, so I'll read them out and then let us get your thoughts on them. Huddersfield Giants have signed Toronto Wolfpack hooker James Cunningham, not prop, hooker on a 2-year contract. The 26-year-old has been training with the Giants recently, with Super League clubs voting last week not to allow Toronto to return to the 2021 season. That's one point that I think, where people have pulled it out as an issue with the vote last week, I completely agree that all these clubs that have got players lined up to come in from the Wolfpack.
Yeah.
You know, and look, credit to the clubs who've actually taken on those players that the Wolfpack administrators left behind with no fucking wages. Yeah. So credit to them for spotting opportunities there and actually making sure some of those 22, 23 guys got actually paid this year. But at the same time,
or potentially lost from the sport completely.
Yeah, but at the same time, it did give a conflict of interest when you're negotiating with a player to try and sign them, when you know that negotiation is going to go differently if they had a club in Super League to play for. So, question marks on that side of it. But on the James Cunningham signing for Huddersfield, what do you think?
Smart move. I think he's a Super League quality hooker who needs a berth in Super League. I think he's shown... I think hooker is his best position. I know he's played a bit in the halves as well, but I definitely think he's a natural hooker who needs to be in there. And I think Huddersfield, pretty good fit for him.
Yeah, he's got a clever kicking game. He's similar enough in style to Adam O'Brien that you're not going to lose out much in terms of how you set your team up to play when one of them's starting or one of them's coming off the bench or what have you. But then he offers enough different that there'll be times of the game where you know Cunningham will come into his own, I think, versus O'Brien. So I think it's sensible.
And he can play round the park as well, so you could end up with a situation where you play both of them at once,
yeah,
if you wanted to as well.
Yep. Super League club Castleford Tigers have taken up an option to extend the contract of forward Tyler Heppy until the end of 2021. The 27-year-old, God, don't feel like
he's been around.
Yeah,
no, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, he just looks a bit young as well.
He was at the Gloucestershire All Golds.
I remember that was a long time ago now as well, wasn't it? So, yeah. He's made 8 appearances since joining from Toulouse Olympique at the start of the year. The New Zealand-born prop is considered to be Federation trained, so does not count on the club's overseas quota.
Is it my news now?
No, I just wondered if you had any take on Tyler Heppy. I feel like I've not seen enough of him.
Yeah, I'm struggling to make much of a memorable performance from him, but I think it's
body to the squad that has shown he can play in the competition.
Yeah.
Someone who definitely can play in the competition is St Helens prop forward Matty Lees, who signed a new 2-year contract extension to keep him with the reigning Super League champions until 2022. After making his first team debut in 2017, the 22-year-old is going to play 65 times for the club. He's made 18 appearances for the side this season as well, as they clinched a playoff semi-final spot. So played in pretty much all their games, aside from maybe 1 or 2, as Matty Lees this year. What do you think of this one?
Solid, very good bit of business to get tied down. He's, again, fantastic young player coming on. Big part of that Saints burgeoning side that are still very young.
Yeah, Knowles and Lees seem like a important part of the middle for the next period for that club, as they obviously lose James Graham, transitioning a few overseas players that you never quite know if they're going to buy into things or not. And Wormsley at some point is not going to be able to be as amazing as it's been this year. So yeah. It's getting those core young developed players in on a medium term basis there. Yep. And finally, from Super League, Wigan Warriors have completed the signing of NRL speedster Jai Field. Field joins the club from Parramatta Eels after the Warriors beat Leeds Rhinos to the signing of the 23-year-old. Field has signed a 2-year deal with the club after 17 appearances in the NRL. How much do you know of Jai Field? What do you make of Jai Field? He's played a couple of times this year for the Eels, I think, in games that they don't know much about.
I've seen him sort of in names in the long list 21s, but I can't really remember much about him, to be honest.
No, I think there's an element of unprovenness with him, but he's very much an exciting talent with the ball. He's comparable to Bevan French, I think. Maybe when Wigan signed him or did the deal to sign him, they maybe weren't sure on Bevan French. But it looks like Field's going to find a spot in the halves now, and probably he is a bit more instinctively a ball a kind of player who can play in the halves. But he's a very talented kid who we're going to find out if he can crack it Bevan French style. It's a risk, I think, but potentially another exciting player in Super League next year.
Yeah, I mean, he does look to have that sort of similar quality to Bevan French, which, I mean, if you look at that back line, if everybody's fit, that's quite scary.
Yeah, well, we're going to have more speed in the number 1 and number 6 jerseys than we're going to have on the wings next year, I think. But we'll see how that goes.
And you've got a surfeit of riches out wide as well, so that's only good news.
Yeah, let's move on to, well, a kind of segue between Super League and Championship, I suppose, with the next story, Tim.
Yeah, as bids are starting to come forward to be the 12th team for Super League, it has emerged that newcomers will receive almost half the central funding given to the upper 11 clubs. The PA news agency understands that when clubs agreed on Tuesday to replace Toronto Wolfpack in 2021, it came with a condition that the 12th team will be given $1 million from the final year of the Sky Television deal. Clubs currently receive around $1.8 million, but that's expected to go down when the 4-year deal worth $40 million expires at the end of 2021. The clubs are also having to fund a rebate next season due to the loss of televised fixtures caused by the coronavirus pandemic. I mean, this isn't a good look, is it?
No, on the face of it, when it's presented, it looks poor and self-interest inspired by the current Super League clubs, doesn't it?
I mean, there is an argument for it being the complete other way round, that the newcomer should get more to establish themselves as a Super League club against everybody. I mean, okay, these circumstances are beyond it, but in a normal year, you almost think you should get an extra bit to welcome you into Super League and get your infrastructure from being a Championship club to a Super League club. And because what you want to see is that side come up and compete. You don't want to see them yo-yoing up and down all the time.
No, what we want to see is that side come up and compete.
Yes.
What the clubs, and particularly the clubs that I say have finished outside of the top 6 this season, want to see is themselves having an advantage over those clubs. So it all does look bad. I think there's some context to put around this that maybe twists the narrative slightly, though, Tim, in that 1.8 million is not what the clubs are going to get next year. The 11 clubs already in Super League. And actually this year they got slightly more because they kind of forced Toronto's hand with Toronto not taking any central distributions for this season. So, but with the Sky rebate next year, that's believed to be around about 250 to 265,000-ish. So basically they'll be getting 1.5 million from central distribution next year for those teams. And one of the other arguments is the team that's coming in from the Championship has had a far, far lower cost base this year, in a year when none of the clubs have been able to generate their normal revenues. So it's almost like with the extra, say, £150,000 of coronavirus testing costs that the Super League clubs have faced, plus the fact that the Championship clubs have been able to almost kind of satisfy their squad by putting them on furlough leave, not having to have the difficult conversations with their players about taking pay cuts for them to exist going forward, because they never had to take them off the furlough scheme. There's those benefits in a weird way that the Championship clubs, aside from Toulouse, I don't know what their financial aid package might have been in France, have been able to benefit from. So there is a slight other angle, I think, to look at this, but it still doesn't look good, and it's not how I would like the league to go necessarily.
No. Of those contenders, we've sort of touched on them there. What's the ones that have sort of shown their hands at this point? What is your opinion in terms of who would be the favourite to come in.
Yeah, well, we have a slightly clearer picture than last week when we spoke about this, but when obviously